Hello, everyone. Welcome to the 5 Minutes Podcast. Today, I like to talk about stop worrying about things you can control. And let me tell you why I want to talk to you about that. We all know that around, I would say, 3 months ago, the world just, I would say, collapsed with the pandemic, COVID-19. And during this time, of course, we are trying also to support each other. And in one breakfast that we had with a team working together, one of our colleagues, and for those who are on the PMI community or PMI volunteers, you know about her, it's Brantley Underhill from PMI. And she did a quick presentation, very informal about control and absence of control, and talking about what we can do with things that we do not control. And it was extremely helpful, and I'm not her, so I will try to do the best to share my thoughts with you on that. So the first thing we need to understand is that there is a natural feeling. I don't know if it's cultural, I don't know if it's, I would say, religious, but we always feel that we are the center of the universe ourselves, that everything around us only exists because we exist as a center of everything. So these bring to most of us that feeling that we have the control. And this was extremely reinforced by our natural evolution with the cognitive revolution. So if you take a look on Sapiens from Harari, one of my favorite books, and when he starts talking about the cognitive revolution, that makes humans different from animals. Animals, they hunt, they eat, and they eat all they can, and then they rest, and then they start hunting again. We started envisioning a future that does not exist, and with that we were able to trap animals. We were able to create situations that we can preserve, and this cognitive put the human being in the front of all other animals. But this at the same time is what is, I would say, messing up with us when we face challenges, because we start using this cognitive capability on the bad side. So let me explain to you. It's that you turn on your TV, and then you start watching the news. And then suddenly you start feeling, I'm losing the job. And then I'm losing my family. Oh, I will get sick. I will die. Everything will collapse. And suddenly that sort of thoughts become dominant in your life. And you lose your control. And you start to having depression, having a full inability to handle things. So let me try to give you some quick advices on that. First thing, things you have control. So on these things that I would say, I don't want to say it's 1% or 5%. I'm not an expert on that, but I can assume that it's a small amount of things that covers your life. On that, you can plan, you can drive, you can manage. On that piece, you have the full control of the destiny and the reasoning you want to put in. But on everything else that you don't have, because you have control. If you go out of your house, or if you take a plane, or if you take a flight, but you don't have control on how the other 200 million inhabitants in your country will behave. Because you don't. You don't have, so you don't know if the virus will grow or will reduce, if your company will do well, bad, and how good it will be. So every time you don't have control, you basically need to do 4 things. First one, it's very tough. You need to accept. You need to accept that you don't have control. You don't have control over the mind of your boss. You don't have the control over the mind of your client. You don't. Maybe you think you have, but you don't. You don't have control over the mind of your child or your wife or your partner. The second aspect when you don't have control is react. So you need to be ready to react when things come up. You need to be stuck at home. You need to react. What do I need to stay safe at home? So this is our ability to react. And third, to adapt. So you need to adapt. And this is why, for example, many times people talking about the world is becoming more agile. I need to say it's not about an agile method, but it's an adaptative method that agile covers quite well. So instead of having control of everything, you control what you can, and what you cannot, you just adapt. learn, react, and accept. These are the four. So you learn because over time, you become so used to that unknown that you increase your ability to control. So for us, the pandemic of COVID-19 was a surprise because in the past 100 years, we haven't seen that. But maybe, look, for God's sake, it doesn't happen. But if this happens again in 2 years from now, it will be different, our reaction, because we learned. We learned a lot of things that will help us to cope with the challenges. And this is exactly what we are talking here. And of course, you may say, Ricardo, but I don't get why you're talking about that. Because you're an engineer, you are not a psychologist. But let me tell you, there is a true and direct link between your mental health, your psychological health, and the results you get. It's pretty much impossible for you to get a great results in your project, whatever the project is. If it's a new car, a new space shuttle, if your mental health is not well. So this is why I want to give you 3 advices. And this is a personal advice. It's not an expert advice, but personal. First one is mindfulness. I started doing that about 6 years ago. And it's very helpful. At the beginning, I thought this was, I would say, a waste of time to stay silent and this. But today, I can tell you, it's one of the best things for me. Most of the time when I start getting trapped to this desire of control, what I cannot control. The second thing is about yoga, nature, and this. For example, for me, I'm trying to do a lot of that. I'm trying to do things in nature. I know if you live in a place that nature is not very evident, so maybe just do some gardening, and this contact with, I would say, an animal or plants will help you. And this is the way I'm finding very helpful. So I always try to have my window open, to have some fresh air. And the third, and a very important one, is to do whatever you can to avoid emotional hijack. And what is an emotional hijack? It's when your brain stop processing things in a rational way and start processing things in a survival way. And this is I would say I'm explaining in a very naive way. But for example, sometimes you start watching TV and you get trapped to that. You get just depressed and you don't know why. And then suddenly it's because this imaginary future is coming to your mind and trapping you on that. And then you get angry or you get depressed. Remember, your mental health is one of the first assets for you as a leader to deliver the results your company, your shareholders, and the society expect from you. So you need to be very mindful of that. And during this kind of crisis we are facing now, it's a paramount for you to think about that. So think about the things you cannot control, handle them in the best you can, and stop worrying about that. Okay, stop, because it's worthless for you to be concerned about a new pandemic that will come after us in 4 years from now as a single individual. This is a far bigger problem than all of us. So be mindful of that. Enjoy your week and see you next week with another 5 Minutes podcast.